So I'd love to begin the session by giving a little bit more context on my background and why I feel passionate about career-ready education. And then I'd love to walk you all through the Springboard model and what we're currently doing to provide job-ready education for students. And then more broadly, just talk about the ecosystem, all the cool EdTech companies that are coming up and the solutions that they're building, and how EdTech companies can work with universities to have like mutually beneficial partnerships. After that, I'll just open it up to any questions you all have about the EdTech space or any new startups or venture capital initiatives in that. So to give you some background about myself, I was an engineering student at UT Austin and honestly struggling a lot with engineering school. This is 2010, 2011, my first 2 years of college, and I wasn't understanding engineering the same way as my professors were teaching it in a very theoretical, abstract manner. So what I ended up doing at that time was the resources didn't exist online to show how promising engineering careers were, nor to help students understand engineering like in more practical ways, like Codecademy, the Learn to Code movement, those kind of things hadn't taken off at that time. So I ended up doing a research project where I cold emailed five really influential people, a Nobel laureate, a Supreme Court lawyer, and others of that caliber, asking them why someone should study engineering. And that research actually became the foundation of my book, Engineering America, that I published in 2012, talking about America's job skills gap. Basically about how universities are teaching engineering in these ways that students aren't really connecting with. And as a result, so many students are dropping out and creating the skills gap where the economy needs more engineers than we are actually educating. So after I graduated, I joined Udacity, an early company trying to change how education is delivered. Worked there for 2 years building products with Google and Georgia Tech, and went to grad school, worked in venture capital, then investing in EdTech companies. And I've been at Springboard for the past 2 years, building out online programs that teach skills such as data science and UX design in more practical and job-ready ways. So I'd love to walk you through what Springboard does with a short deck, and then talk more broadly about the sector. Springboard was created about 4 years ago with the idea that we can provide online education which is high touch. So as you all know, there are many MOOCs. Since 2011, there have been a lot of MOOCs online. But there's a gap in the market where, which starts, I guess the spectrum of EdTech companies starts at the Udacity and Coursera's of the world, which are just online content that's powerful and like someone can like access kind of like a library. And EdTech companies, like the spectrum ends at like companies such as Rhythm School, Galvanize, Hack Reactor, those in-person boot camps. Springboard is somewhere in the middle of that spectrum because it's online, it's flexible, just like those courses are, but it is high touch. There's an industry mentor who works with you, there's a career coach who works with you, and a student advisor who works with you. So basically, there's students who can succeed by just reading, watching videos and reading content, and then there's students who need the classroom. And Springboard is designed for the people who can't go to the classroom but need that flexibility and that hand-holding support to get through this tricky material. So Springboard has educated about 12,000 students and has industry mentors from 77 countries, so we're very international. This is a picture from Springboard Rise, a conference we did with LinkedIn. One of the co-founders of LinkedIn was an early investor of ours, and we worked closely with them to help identify areas where there's a job skills gap and help bridge that. And like I said, our mission is to bridge the world skills gap. So our courses are all online, but it's not just video content. We don't just teach you like Excel or pivot tables. We teach you how to become like a data analyst or a data scientist. So the programs are 6 to 9 months long and basically focus on like project-based learning with this mentor. So if you're studying data science, for example, you could be working with a data scientist at a company like Uber or Airbnb who shows you how they're using the skills that you're learning to build better products. So it gives much more industry context. And as a result, on our end, we're kind of unlocking the sharing economy for knowledge, basically tapping into the knowledge these professionals have and helping students understand the context more deeply. What I really like is that we have about 400 mentors in data science, and they all work at like all the top tech companies. When you think about like Apple, Google, Uber, and they have more data science talent than any faculty at any university around the world, just because we're leveraging people in the workforce where they're actually developing a lot of these new age technologies. We've taught over 12,000 students, like I mentioned, and fortunately, our ratings are high. We offer a job guarantee, meaning that if students don't get a job within 6 months of graduating, we refund their tuition. And while that was tricky to implement, and I'm happy to talk about that more later, it's actually been great because our incentives are aligned with the students, and we make sure that we design the curriculum in a way that ensures employability at the end of it. This is our team. I'll skip over it, but at a high level, it's a mix of educators, technology professionals, as well as like consulting and strategy professionals who have like helped scale tech companies. So now diving into how Springboard works, we match each learner with one mentor. So like I mentioned, we have 400 data science mentors and about 200 UX design mentors. And basically we pair them one-on-one. So mentors can take on between like probably on average, they take on between like 3 and 7 students per quarter because they're also working full time. And we match them based on the skills and like areas of interest. So if a student wants to get into the health tech space, we'll try to find them a mentor from like a company like Forward or Athena Health, and basically help them advance their career goals in that way. So we match mentors ahead of time, and then students progress through the curriculum at their own pace, learning with the community and engaging with their mentor on a weekly basis through a 30-minute video call. And they also have the option to take more video calls as needed as they go through the content. The projects that we have in the course are all built with companies. So for example, Google has a partnership with us for a digital marketing course where students get about $1,000 of ad credit to help optimize a nonprofit's online presence in a week's time. So they work with this nonprofit, they understand the requirements, then they use this ad budget to help optimize and make like real world projects come out of that. There's the mentor who works with you throughout, and this just gives a lot more support and coaching. What we have found is that this mentorship component has boosted our completion rates to be 8 to 10x higher than what the industry is at. So when you think about how MOOCs, the completion rate of those, and also the small paid online courses that are being offered, we're 8 to 10x higher than that. So it's been very exciting to see how much of a difference the human element brings to online education. So at a high level, these are some of our programs. We have been working with universities to think through how we can co-brand these offerings and incorporate university content along with our job readiness to offer that to students. So we're currently in talks with 4 universities about taking these 3 programs and co-branding them, adding new instructional material and case studies from the universities, having some of the professors engage with that content, and also delivering it in interesting ways. So maybe having like alumni of the school be part of the mentoring pool if they have like, the relevant professional experience. Another opportunity is that we are working with the school for kind of like a pre-graduate school initiative. So if you want to study data science in school, like building out a pre-data science track with them and having, again, school alumni and professors engaged more meaningfully. But I mean, if I had to summarize what our core proposition is for each of these offerings, it's that we provide the practical education, like pulling all of these industry projects that are engaging and help build student portfolios, provide the industry mentorship so they understand the real world applications, and then finally, all the coaching and support that they need to build out their portfolio and prepare for interviews. So basically, wanted to recap that universities are really interesting partners for companies like Springboard and others in the EdTech space, because companies like EdTech companies bring a tech-savvy platform and bring a lot of like Silicon Valley expertise, combined with the university's expertise in subject matter material and instructional design, and together that becomes a really interesting combination. And would love to take any questions you all have about EdTech companies or anything that like trends that are happening in the sector. If it's helpful, I can actually talk about some of the reasons why EdTech is growing so much, to give a little bit broader perspective than just Springboard. So what has happened is that in the industry, we kind of consider EdTech to have started in 2011, 2012 with the formation of Udacity and Coursera. And at that time, about $0.7 billion was invested in the space. This year, past year, $7 billion were invested. So you've seen like a 10x growth in the funding, and that's because there's so many new billion-dollar companies that are coming out of this space. There's of course like the valuations from Coursera and Udacity, and then there are these big companies like from the Tal Education Group and others that are coming up to VIP Kid that are making so much revenue in the sector. There are three trends that are enabling this growth. One is kind of the frustration that recent graduates are facing when they don't have the job ready skills to get like a secure job after graduating. So they feel that they've taken on so much debt and they no longer realize what the pathway could be to getting them the high paying job. So I guess the frustration building up from that is contributing to people exploring these alternative pathways. And some universities are doing a great job in jumping with that and finding ways to offer job ready programs. So that's the first trend. The second is that employers are starting to look beyond just degrees as a signaling tool for recruiting. So previously, recruiters would just look at the university degrees and pass on candidates, but now it's becoming a lot more around skills assessment. So it doesn't really matter where you gain those skills as long as you can pass like the work products that the companies ask you to do in the interview process. So companies are just becoming much more receptive about that in general. And then the third trend is that education is becoming a lot more like an ecosystem or an economy almost versus a specific vertical. What I mean by that is that previously there were like companies that were trying to capture all of the components that made college great, such as like the social component, the education component, the job ready skills, the credentialing, the place to spend 4 years. And now there are companies that are coming up in each of those categories. So basically, there are companies that do the travel for 4 years, or the or like a place to hang out and meet friends, or a place to learn the job skills. And what it would be interesting, or what is interesting right now, is that there are partnerships that are being formed between these edtech companies to collaborate and offer new offerings together. So, for example, Springboard works with a company called Nomad MBA that basically enables students to travel with a cohort of 70 people across 3 months, across three different countries. So it gives you this community while you take online courses by Springboard. So the completion rate of this program is actually much higher because you are together with a cohort of like-minded professionals, but also engaging in this online course that helps you change your career. So such partnerships, I think, will become more mainstream as we think about all of the different pillars of universities. And universities could play a huge part in this by enabling this. So just imagining like in the future, universities will have these like travel and learn programs where before like applying to maybe a university like Duke, you could travel with a cohort of other interested applicants while taking pre-readiness courses. And once you graduate, you can apply to Duke, or like, I mean, you have a leg up in admissions or something like that. So a lot of interesting collaborations that can happen because startups provide this kind of the speed of and the technology to be able to quickly build this out, and also like the industry element that they can contribute. Yeah, so the careers of the future, while I don't know what the percentage would be, I don't think anyone can actually accurately predict that. With that said, there will be huge transformative opportunities in that space, and like, the careers will be very different. However, the careers will be stacked on top of existing job skills needs. So what I mean by that is that right now there's a shortage in data science professionals. At some point, there will be like enough AI software that we build that will take away a lot of the data analytics work that we currently do. But at that point, the skill that will be required is like the judgment of being able to take that data and make business decisions. So every need will be stacked on top. So there won't be a job that we absolutely haven't thought about that'll come up in the future. It'll rather be built on like what the existing needs are and how those are changing with how technology is advancing. So I think that a startup that's thinking about this in a very interesting way is actually in the talent tech space. It's called Eightfold AI. And right now, their consumer facing product is that if you go to like a Facebook jobs page, for example, instead of seeing 4,000 openings, you drop your resume and only see the 4 or 5 that are relevant to you. So anyone who's recruited at a big company knows that, like, I mean, they have like, I guess maybe 100 program manager listings across the world in all of these different teams. And you really, as an applicant, have to wonder, like, how do you fit into that role? Like, which team do you apply for? How do you even navigate that if you're not at the company already? So Eightfold AI is initially taking away that hurdle by enabling you to find the opportunities that are relevant to you. But what they're trying to do in the back end to make it easier for recruiters to actually identify the appropriate candidates is that they're creating job families. Basically, assessing the skills that you need in order to be in a particular occupation, and then thinking about what makes sense as the next role for you. Their hypothesis is that people don't leave jobs to do the same job at a different company. And that's how recruiters are currently hiring for. Like if you've been a product manager somewhere, then you can be a product manager at their company. But Eightfold AI's hypothesis is that you want to grow through your career, leveraging the skills you've gained and like using that to move up in the career. So the job families they've created are identify things such as like if you are a Microsoft product person, there's a 90% chance that you know Java, even if you don't have Java listed on your resume. So kind of like leveraging those like that know-how of the different roles at different types of companies to create these groups, and then being like you can utilize that skill as a product manager to become a business operations person at this company because you share like 80% of the same skills, and it advances your career forward. So that's a really interesting application. Eightfold has grown a ton. They have like 100 customers now of all these big tech companies. And I think that in the future, this is how people will look at jobs. And perhaps there might be an education component that you want to move up from being a program manager to being a product manager. These are the skills that you have to gain because this is how the job families are categorized. And hopefully enabling people to move forward that way. So, like you said, micro internships are really interesting. But before I talk about other trends, just want to like quickly double tap into that. What we have recently done is, as part of our UX design career track, which helps people become UX designers, we have launched a 4-week micro internship with startups. So we are working with different accelerator programs to generate startup requests and pairing students with different startups to work on a 4-week project. And the outcomes are actually far like better than we expected them to be. Within 4 weeks, students are able to do these like really interesting projects and actually get hired as either contractors or full-time employees at these startups. So we have partnered with like 500 startups, Berkeley, Skydeck, those kind of accelerator programs, and it's like a mutually beneficial internship that leads to employment. So that we think is like a super cool initiative going forward. Other things are around content consumption. So a trend that, I mean, I guess there are two parts of content consumption. One is around a student's attention span. When I was at Udacity in 2014, we used to make videos to be about 6.5 minutes long because that was the attention span of like average users at that point before they dropped off. Now videos are actually being made between like 2.5 and 3.5 minutes just because users are not able to engage with like a 6 or 7 minute video any longer. So being able to like find ways to deliver like high quality information that's meaningful and something that students can retain in that amount of time is a huge instructional design challenge. And of course, we're leveraging all of the different types of content delivery, like we are doing text notes, activities, all of those. But it's just an interesting observation as far as content goes. Another trend of the content space is around content curation. So Udacity used to spend $1 million per nano degree that we built, which is a very pricey endeavor. Udacity wanted to become the Hollywood of education, and that's why we invested so much in content. But over the years, content is becoming more and more of a commodity in the sense that that itself is not the unique value proposition on why a student selects any program, is what we've learned. So instead, EdTech companies are leveraging a lot more content curation, Identifying, like building out pathways by pulling content from different sources, kind of like how any great professor does, like pulling videos and text material from like HBR articles or YouTube videos or TED Talks, and putting those together in a way that makes sense for the student going through the career pathway. So I think that's also a different and interesting trend in the content tech space.